pinnacle of competition. A solid defensive base is paramount, for the art of protection demands far more mastery than the act of striking. It is the defender who truly understands the subtleties of the encounter, navigating a delicate balance between vulnerability and resilience. Winky Wright embodied the essence of a pressure boxer with a strong defensive foundation. Though not renowned for his power, his craftiness set him apart. He had the ability to endure 12 intense rounds while effectively neutralizing his opponent's offense. His style was centered on meticulously breaking down his opponent, round after round. After defeating the then pound-for-pound ranked Sugar Shane Mosley back-to-back, Winky chose to relinquish his super welterweight titles and move up to middleweight to face the world's number 4 middleweight fighter. Felix Tito Trinidad was a 2-division unified champion and former middleweight world champion. The only loss on his record was to the legendary Bernard Hopkins. With a record of 42-1 and 35 knockouts, Trinidad was considered one of the most destructive punchers of his era. As he entered his 5th fight at middleweight, Winky stepped into the ring as the underdog. At its core, boxing appears rather straightforward. Strike your opponent more effectively than they strike you. Or as some might say, the art of hitting without being hit. Winky Wright exemplified a defensive boxer. Yet, this did not mean retreating or merely reacting to his opponent's advances. Instead, he maintained a sturdy guard, holding his ground to launch his own strategic offense. In contrast, Tito was a power-driven counterpuncher, adopting an aggressive stance to impose his will and capitalize on his opponent's errors. This matchup presented a fascinating dynamic. On one side, a tactician grounded in defense, and on the other, a butcher seeking to decapitate heads.
They're fighting behind him. He's missing all the contact.
And now left hook. Right.
They say the fighter that has his foot to the outside has the advantage because he has the other guy trapped in his...
Reflecting in hindsight, it's clear why the high guard proved to be Tito's kryptonite. The high guard is a disciplined defense, hands consistently up and in position. This means to create an opening, one must break through the guard, as no easy opportunities are given. Tito's stance was more square than usual. With the signature move being a left hook, the square stance allowed him to open up with hooks, already positioned for leverage, instead of having to set up the left hook like throwing a right cross in order to load the left hook. The high guard excels at blocking single shots, as it remains intact. This forced Tito to rethink his strategy, potentially needing to press with combinations. However, this approach risks wasting punches if not calculated. A key aspect of the high guard is compelling opponents to engage more than they might prefer, draining their stamina and leaving them vulnerable in the later stages of the fight.
Throwing 37 total punches per round. Wright is just owning the punching right and landing a right hand. Trolling Tito with the jab. There are moments when he's humiliated.
Tito's eagerness to press with combinations also exposed them to counters. High guard practitioners are adept at catching and countering, and they allow Winky to hold his ground, often prompting Tito to advance his offense. With the speed planted, Winky could time his counters effectively between Tito's punches. Winky's high guard was that of an elite practitioner, employing subtle techniques to add layers to what might seem a static defense. One such technique was taking short steps back. As Tito began to unload his power, Winky would step back slightly to reduce the impact, preserving the guard's integrity and conditioning Tito to overreach. This could disrupt Tito's range, causing him to smother his own combinations by stepping in too far, forcing him into a position to throw wide punches, which the high guard is particularly effective against.
Effectively constantly with that right jab, piling up the points, blocking Tito during the sport.
Scourge punches in the sport.
You know, and I would like to add, the fight in this fashion doesn't have to throw.
A sturdy shield requires a complementary weapon, and nothing pairs better than a long-range weapon that is both fast and reliable. Tito found himself at a loss against Winky's guard and was even more perplexed by his jab. In a matchup between two fighters, the jab is often the closest weapon each has to the other. Tito's mixed up lay in his guard and stance. In a southpaw versus orthodox fight, there's typically a lot of hand fighting, as the lead hands of both fighters tend to clash. By choosing to square up, Tito favored his left hook, but at the expense of his defense. This alignment left him directly exposed to Winky's jab without creating any defensive layers. To make matters worse, Tito fought off his front foot, embodying the aggressive power punch role and opting to be the hunter. This approach caused his head to protrude more than his footing, leading him to enter the pocket head first.
His biggest rally at the fight brought the crowd out of their seats with a couple of copy box window into what's going on here. Through 4 rounds. And you heard Dan Birmingham, the trainer of Wright, say it's a little early to say that.
Right now, Wright is systematically breaking.
When you're holding your ground as a defensive fighter, the aggressor is easy to spot. A key aspect of being the aggressor is establishing a rhythm in your offense. Winky ensured that Tito never got into second gear. He achieved this not with power punches or by matching aggression, but by unsettling Tito with solid defense and using his jab as his primary weapon. It wasn't about throwing flurries of jabs, but about delivering smart, well-timed ones. Like any boxer, Tito needed to close the gap or enter the pocket to fire his shots. However, each time he did, he was met with a firm jab that halted him in his tracks. Instead of focusing on following up with power punches, Winky prioritized disrupting Tito's rhythm, preventing him from becoming a threat and building on that disruption.
He's so front foot heavy that he can't avoid anything. And these jabs are starting to take a toll on him.
Around and done the same thing.
Well, Winky isn't at the advantage right now. He's in hard rhythm. This is what a guy wants.
And he tasted it.
Harold Letterman made a very important point when he said that
For Tito to defend against the jab, he needed to be proactive, using techniques like parrying or movement. The issue was, he struggled with timing Winky's jab. This was largely due to how Winky delivered it, straight from his high guard, with no tells or telegraphs. With this consistent high guard, Winky's hands rarely dropped, presenting a single, difficult to read look. The jab and high guard were the core of this matchup. Tito needed to create openings, but could hardly find his rhythm because everything was being blocked. Additionally, he often found himself out of position after throwing punches, only to be reset by another jab. It was a rinse and repeat strategy focused on defense, timing, and strategy, rather than excessive engagement.
Good little pop by Wright with the turn in any way, shape, or form against a southpaw fighter. And another perfectly blocked match. Who would have thought that it might be true?
See it.
And how hard it is to stop the attack.
In the end, Winky's defense effectively shut down the offense of a Hall of Famer. Tito managed to land only 58 punches, struggling to connect with even 10% of his total attempts. His offense was completely neutralized, unable to shift out of first gear. Winky's defensive strategy and jab-centric approach dominated the fight, with Winky landing 185 jabs alone. This bout serves as a perfect example of the power of a strong defense and a solid jab. Trinidad made no excuses, acknowledging that he was in the best shape of his life, but couldn't land his power punches. While offense could get you to the top, it's defense that keeps you there.
Prayer. I mean, I just think that, you could beat him maybe from...
Here you see Winky with that jab, left hand, right down the middle, and this the best 2 punches Winky landed are 1-2, right flush in the face, put a real left hand on him the whole fight. 1-2, as best you can ask for. Right jab over the top of Tito's left hand, right jab right over the top of the left hand, right jab right over the top of his left, right